For more than a century, we've pictured the Neanderthal as the ultimate Ice Age hunter, taking down mammoths and feasting on fresh meat. The science seemed to back this up, with chemical analysis of their bones suggesting they ate more meat than almost any predator alive. But this story has always had one giant nagging problem. A diet like that should have killed them. Now, a compelling new theory about a disgusting secret hidden in their prey has emerged, and it doesn't just offer a solution to this mystery. It could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Neanderthal survival. For decades, archaeology has given us a dramatic and consistent image of Neanderthals. Based on massive collections of animal bones at their campsites and the powerful build of their skeletons, we saw them as the undisputed apex predators of Pleistocene Europe. They weren't just getting by, they were thriving at the very top of the food chain, hunting enormous game like woolly rhinos and wild sheep. This wasn't just speculation, it was backed up by hard chemical data from their bones. Scientists use a technique called stable isotope analysis, which measures the ratios of different elements in bone. Specifically, they look at nitrogen-15. The rule is pretty simple. The higher up the food chain you go, the more nitrogen-15 builds up in your body. A plant has very little, an herbivore that eats it has more, and a carnivore that eats the herbivore has the most. When scientists analyzed Neanderthal fossils, the results were stunning. Their nitrogen-15 levels were off the charts, as high as, or even higher than, top predators like lions and hyenas from the same period. The conclusion felt inescapable. Neanderthals were hypercarnivores, living on a diet of almost nothing but fresh meat. For a long time, this was the bedrock of our understanding of their lives. But it presented a terrifying biological paradox. There's a fatal flaw in the hypercarnivore story. Hominins, the group including Neanderthals and us, Homo sapiens, are not specialized meat eaters. Unlike a lion, our bodies just can't handle extreme amounts of protein. If a person tries to survive only on lean meat, without enough fat or carbs, they'll run into a dangerous condition called protein poisoning, sometimes known as rabbit starvation. This happens because our livers can only process so much protein and its toxic byproducts. Go past that limit, and you'll get hit with nausea, fatigue, diarrhea, and eventually death. The lean wild game of the Ice Age would have been a minefield for this exact problem. This left scientists with a decades-long mystery. How could Neanderthals live on a diet that, by all accounts of our own biology, should have been lethal? Their bones screamed hypercarnivore, but their biology should have screamed dead. What were we missing? A groundbreaking 2025 study has proposed an answer that is as brilliant as it is, well, disgusting. The solution to the Neanderthal diet paradox might not be what they ate, but how they ate it. They weren't just eating fresh meat. It's now believed they were likely consuming putrid, fermented meat that was teeming with fly larvae, maggots. This unsettling idea doesn't point to desperation, but to genius. A study led by Purdue University anthropologist Melanie Beasley proposes that this maggot-rich diet was the secret ingredient that made their meat-heavy lifestyle possible. It suggests Neanderthals weren't just simple hunters who gorged on fresh kills, but were sophisticated food processors who knew how to manage their resources. This wasn't a last resort. It may have been a bizarre and powerful evolutionary advantage. So, how did scientists arrive at this theory? The key was to look at the mystery from a totally new angle. Instead of just focusing on the Neanderthal, they looked at the entire life cycle of a carcass. First off, let's talk about the maggots themselves. Far from being a sign of spoiled food, these fly larvae would have been a crucial nutritional resource. they are incredibly rich in fat. Eating these tiny fatty morsels along with the lean meat would have provided the perfect nutritional balance, giving Neanderthals the fat they needed to avoid protein poisoning. The maggots were a bonus source of calories that made stored food both safe and more nutritious. In fact, ethnographic records from modern indigenous groups, like those in the Arctic, show that eating fermented meat with its maggots is a known and even valued survival strategy. But here's where the theory gets really elegant, because it also seems to solve the original isotope mystery. Dr. Beasley and her team ran experiments and found that while rotting meat itself only slightly increases in nitrogen-15, the maggots feeding on that meat become incredibly concentrated with it. The nitrogen-15 levels in fly larvae can spike to values much higher than the herbivores they are consuming. Suddenly, the picture clears up. The sky-high nitrogen-15 levels in Neanderthal bones weren't necessarily from eating more fresh meat than a lion. They were likely the result of routinely eating meat infested with these nitrogen-packed larvae. The hypercarnivore signal may have been a chemical ghost, created by a diet that included aged meat and its fatty, maggoty bonus. And their ingenuity didn't stop there. At a 125,000-year-old site in Neumark, Nord, Germany, archaeologists have found what looks like a prehistoric fat factory. Here, Neanderthals systematically gathered the bones of at least 172 large animals, like horses and deer. They weren't just smashing them for marrow, a practice that's millions of years old. They were crushing the bones into tiny pieces and then likely heating them in water to render every last drop of bone grease. This is an incredibly labor-intensive process that shows sophisticated planning